Guatemala, a country of Central America bordered to the north and west by Mexico, with an estimated population of around 17.6 million, being the most populous city in Central America. As of 2021, with the GDP of 85.99 billion USD and ranked 135th on the Human Development Index, Guatemala still faces economic challenges that hinders their development. One major economic barrier that Guatemala faces is low levels of human capital, with a focus on the lack of access to healthcare and education. Education is a vital component of a country's development and is one of the Sustainable Development Goals. A country with this economical barrier may face insufficient funding for school, which decreases their GNI per capita, insufficient teachers due to a lack of basic literary skills, insufficient facilities such as classrooms, gender discrimination, and may be in a conflict or even a risk of conflict. As for health, countries lacking access to healthcare may face problems such as insufficient funding for healthcare, insufficient access to services, lack of access to facilities due to the lack of infrastructure such as transportation and roads, insufficient numbers of trained medical practitioners, and insufficient access to clean water and sanitation. Guatemala is unfortunately known for its violent crimes such as extortion, murder, armed robbery, carjacking, and especially gang activity. With its geographical position connecting South and North America, it is a transit and destination country for human trafficking, with victims being females from across Central America that were then forced into sexual exploitation. Additionally, the cocaine trade in Guatemala is one of the main illicit drug markets, as it is one of the major transit points for cocaine produced in Colombia and Peru. In fact, 90% of cocaine trafficked into the U.S. passes through Guatemala. With these dangers, as of 2018, 33,000 Guatemalans fled their country due to the lack of security. However, in 2019, an agreement with the Trump administration was made with Guatemala where 500,000 asylum seekers were sent to Guatemala, which was not a safe destination for them. According to the State Department's Overseas Security Advisory Council, Guatemala remains among the most dangerous countries in the world, with an alarmingly high murder rate and the third highest femicide rate in the world. With refugees being transferred to Guatemala, let's look at their right to health and education, two basic components for growth and development. As refugees, they have the right to free education in state institutions. If they have a university degree, they can go to university and legalize it in the country. However, the process can cost up to 7,624 USD and it still may get rejected. Looking at the overall education system in Guatemala, the expected years of schooling is 10.6 years and the mean of 5.7 years. With its education being mandatory and free from ages 7 to 14, there are 1.3 million students enrolled in 9,300 primary schools in Guatemala. However, as school isn't free after 6th grade, there are only 88,000 students enrolled in university, as having to pay for school books, supplies, uniforms, and transportation can be very costly, considering 49.1% of the population living under the poverty line. With the lack of education, this causes 25.5% of Guatemala's population to be illiterate, hindering their development. As for the right to health, refugees can attend public health centers and hospitals free of charge. However, there are only 0.36 doctors available per 1,000 population, and there are only 0.4 hospital beds per 1,000 people. Therefore, there is a lack of access to healthcare and medical supplies. With a low birth rate of 22 births per 1,000 people, and with its life expectancy of 72 years old, this reveals their lack of access to healthcare in Guatemala. In order to reduce this economic barrier of low levels of human capital, specifically access to healthcare and education, Guatemala can focus on the provision of merit goods. The government can open up education and health programs. For example, they should extend the free education period to ensure students are well educated and are well equipped to secure a job in the future and to contribute to Guatemala's development.
Eritrea is a country recently formed in 1933 and gained independence after being involved in a 3-decade-long civil war with Ethiopia. The country resides in East Africa and is led by a de facto legislature under President Isis Afwerki and other high-ranking military officials. Currently, it is ranked 176th on the Human Development Index, with a HDI indicator of 0.492. With these abysmal development statistics in mind, what possible barrier could be preventing Eritrea from becoming a highly developed country? The political barrier Eritrea faces is a weak institutional framework. Countries facing this political barrier often lack a well-functioning legal system to provide justice. Often this includes the construction and implementations of new laws demanded by citizens to reduce inequalities and further development. Countries with weak institutional frameworks often are vulnerable to corruption, as they may be absent of a transparent tax system and laws reducing susceptibility to corruption. On May 19, 1993, shortly after a national referendum, the People's Front for Democracy and Justice proclaimed themselves the transitional government of Eritrea. The intention was that this government would rule the country for 4 years until the promulgation of a constitution and the election of a permanent government. The Constituent Assembly ratified a new constitution in May 1997, but it was not implemented, and the anticipated parliamentary and presidential elections never took place. Meanwhile, President Afwerki maintains his powerful position as the head of state and government. He's also the commander-in-chief of army and the chair of the country's sole political party. This is all to say that, due to the lack of an institutional framework of preventative laws and regulations against corruption, as a very newly founded country, Eritrea suffers from a corrupt governing power who seems preoccupied with maintaining its position of power rather than choosing to develop its own nation.